Okay. Welcome, everybody, and thank you very much to Lynn and Jonathan for a delicious supper and for hosting this shiur. And all of those of you over there in Netanya who are dreadfully missing me, hopefully I'll be back on Thursday. Philip, are you missing me? Yes, Philip's missing me. Right. Okay. So, Lag BaOmer. What do we know about Lag BaOmer? It's a strange day, Lag BaOmer. Because if you ask 10 Jews what we're celebrating, you'll get 10 different opinions. Okay. Ian, you're right in my eye line. What are we celebrating on Lag BaOmer? Give me one thing we're celebrating.
Stop dying.
Okay, there are students of Rabbi Akiva stop dying. Okay, Ian says the students of Rabbi Akiva stop dying. Anything else we are celebrating on Lag BaOmer?
The Zohar.
The Zohar. Okay, tell me a bit more, Anthony, about the Zohar. What are we celebrating about it?
The hidden Torah, that Shimon Bar Yochai gave to his students.
Okay, Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai
from Rabbi Akiva
revealed the Zohar. Okay, anything else we are celebrating on Lag BaOmer? What about Meron? All those people that flock to Meron. Tens of thousands of people go to Meron. You remember in 2021 there was that disaster there when the whole thing. Okay, they're cutting their hair. Yes. Why are they going to Meron? What's in Meron? Rashbi's grave. Why are they going to Rashbi's grave on Lag BaOmer?
He gave the Zohar to.
Okay, and also because it's Yortzeit. Okay, it's his Yortzeit. Okay, so that's four things we got so far. Yeah, Rabbi Akiva's students died. The Zohar was revealed. Rashbi's Yortzeit. What else? There was another one.
That's where he's buried.
Oh, and that's where he's buried. Yes. Okay. Thank you. You're feeding me nicely. Okay, so he's buried in Meron. Okay, so we've got four things so far. What else on Lag BaOmer? Bonfires. Okay, we have bonfires. Why do we have bonfires? No idea. Good. That's five so far. Six. Anything else? What else do we see? Not so much in this country, but bows and arrows. Yeah, we have bows and arrows. Lots of bows and arrows in Israel. Not so much in this country. By the way, bonfires in Israel is crazy. Everywhere you go is bonfires on Lag BaOmer. I think more people keep bonfires on Lag BaOmer than keep Yom Kippur. It's mad. It's really crazy, but it's a big thing. Okay, so that's seven things we've got so far. Is there anything else? Let me have a quick look. Is there anything else that we need to mention? Oh, yes. One other thing we haven't mentioned.
People get married on one.
People get married on Lag BaOmer. Okay, that's partly because they couldn't get married before Lag BaOmer, right? So they do get married on Lag BaOmer. You're right.
But some of the Talmidim carried on dying, though, didn't they?
We're going to come to that in a minute. Yes, we're going to come to that.
Shave off your beard after Lag BaOmer.
You can shave off your beard. That's all part of the lack of Avelut. What about Bar Kochba? Yeah, Bar Kochba involved in Lag BaOmer. Yeah, any? No, we don't know about that. Okay, we'll talk about that as well. Okay, so we've got 7 or 8 things of those things which we've connected to Lag BaOmer. What would you say if I told you that none of those were actually true? You'd be shocked, wouldn't you? What are we doing keeping Lag BaOmer for if none of them are true? Okay, well, does it matter if they're true or not? Well, we'll see. Maybe it doesn't really matter if they're true or not. But as many of you will know,
I can't believe I drove this thing for 30 years, the city.
Please mute on Zoom. If you would all mute yourself, thank you. As many of you will know, and certainly many of the Chevra on Zoom who know me well will know that I have a little bit of an obsession about authenticity. And if it isn't authentic, I've got to call it out. That doesn't mean that we don't celebrate or commemorate Lag BaOmer. I'm not saying Lag BaOmer doesn't mean anything. But if it's not authentic, I feel a need to call it out. And I feel a need to educate myself. And you've come here, and therefore you're going to be educated because you're here. And actually none of those things are historically provable or not necessarily even historically accurate. Let's talk about the thing that Ian mentioned first, the thing that we all know, and that is that the pupils of Rabbi Akiva stopped dying on Lag BaOmer. Okay, now I'm just going to share the screen for the Zoomers to the source sheet that you've all here in the room have got on in real time. I'm just going to share the screen with the Zoomers so they can see what you can see. All right, there you go. So if we have a look at source number 1 here, there's a Gemara in Yevamot 62b, and this is famous. Everybody knows this. Although it says here Shnei Masa Aleph, I don't think that's right. 24. Oh yeah, Shnei Masa Aleph Zugim. Okay, that's right. 12,000 pairs of Talmidim Hayu lo Rabbi Akiva. 12,000 pairs, 24,000 students Rabbi Akiva had. The Chulan Meitu beperek echad, and they all died in one go. Mipnei shelo nahagu kavod ze lezeh, because they didn't act with respect one towards the other. We'll talk about what that means in a little while. But the Gemara says they all died. 24,000 of them died because they all were disrespectful to one another. And then here comes the shocking bit. Kulam meitu mi Pesach va'ad Atzeret. They all died from Pesach to Atzeret. What is Atzeret?
Yeah, because the translation is Shavuot. I've never heard of it as.
Yeah.
Okay.
I forgot I'd put the translation for you.
Shmini Atzeret.
Yeah, so Atzeret is Shavuot. You all know what Shmini Atzeret is, yeah? So what's Shmini Atzeret? Shmini Atzeret is Shmini, the 8th day of Sukkot, which is Atzeret. Atzeret means stay behind, stop. Atzeret means stop. If you're driving in Israel and you see a sign that says Atzor, if you're Israeli, you ignore it. But if you're not Israeli, you stop, because it means it stops. Atzor means to stop. Atzeret means to stay behind. So I'm sure you're familiar with the idea that Shmini Atzeret is the sort of backstop, if you like, of Sukkot. You've got Sukkot, 7 days of Sukkot, and then you've got Shmini Atzeret, which is a Chag Bifnei Atzmo. It's a Yom Tov of its own. And which is why we don't sit in the sukkah on Shmini Atzeret, or if you do, you do it without a bracha. So it's the end point of Sukkot. So what's that got to do with us? Shavuot is the end part of Pesach. So remember when you were doing 11 plus and you had cat is to dog as someone else is to someone else, yeah, right? So Shmini Atzeret is to Pesach, is to Sukkot, as Shavuot is to Pesach. Shavuot is the end of Pesach. What are you talking about, Lieberman? Pesach is 8 days, 7 days, or 8 days here, and Shavuot 7 weeks later, or 6 weeks later if you count that first week. What are you talking about? Well, Atzeret is the name given to Shavuot because it connects through the 7 weeks of the Omer. Shavuot is connected to Pesach. So the name for one of the names for Shavuot is Atzeret. And so when the Gemara refers to Atzeret here, it's referring to Shavuot. So these 12,000 pairs of students died between Pesach and Shavuot.
Can I ask you why did you say pairs?
Because they were chavrutas. And that was the whole point. They didn't respect one another's opinions. If you ever learnt in a chavrusa, then, the idea is that you pick somebody who's not going to agree with you if you're going to choose a chavrusa. If you have a chavrusa that agrees with you, it's no fun, right? You've got to have a piece of Gemara there that you find somebody that learns in a completely different way to you, and that's where you learn from other people, okay? So they were pairs. They learned in pairs. So they all died, and according to the Gemara, they died between Pesach and Shavuot. No mention of Lag BaOmer, no mention that they stopped dying on Lag BaOmer, no mention of anything except that they all died between Pesach and Shavuot. And so therefore, if we are acting in a sort of semi-avelut way because of the deaths of these pupils, which is why we don't have weddings and why we don't have haircuts and all the semi-mourning things that we do during Sfirat HaOmer, really, if you're just going according to the Gemara, this should be the whole 7 weeks because that's when they died. So and all the early sources, you can look in the Gemara, you can look in the Rishonim, you can look even in the early Achronim, you won't find any mention of Lag BaOmer at all. Doesn't exist. It's a very, relatively speaking, late introduction. I nearly said invention then, but that would be too negative a word. It's a very late introduction. And it's really not found at all until we get into the Kabbalistic period, which is 16th, 17th century, is when it starts to really come to the fore. It's written in early halachic sources say that the students stopped dying on Lag BaOmer, but there is no source for that in the Gemara and no source for it, bearing in mind we're talking about when did all this happen? When did Rabbi Akiva live?
In the Romans, when the Romans were in
Romans time, yeah, 2nd century. Yeah, he lived through, and this we'll come back to this shortly. He lived through the Bar Kokhba rebellion. What year was the Bar Kokhba rebellion?
135 finished.
Go on, 130. Yeah, 132 to 135. Very good.
Johnny, he believed the Bar Kokhba was Mashiach.
Yes, we're coming to that, Jackie. We're coming to that.
Could this just be Midrash Gemara hyperbole because actually his students died during the Bar Kokhba revolt?
Okay, that is one opinion. We're going to come back to that as well. And that's another layer that I would definitely want to talk about, but we'll get there in a minute. So, what's the 33 days business about? Okay, now there's a very interesting opinion about what this 33 days is about. Now, you'll be aware, won't you, that there are different minhagim of to which 33 days you can keep. Right? So you can either keep from day 1 to Lag BaOmer, that's 33 days, or if you're Sephardi, you have to keep till Lad BaOmer, until the morning of the 34th. Or you can keep from Rosh Chodesh Iyar through to Shavuot, also a 33-day period. Now, again, just stop and ask yourself a question. If the pupils of Rabbi Akiva stopped dying on Lag BaOmer, why is there a minhag to keep this Avelot after Lag BaOmer? If they stop dying on Lag BaOmer, then they stop dying on Lag BaOmer, and a week later, on the 40th day of the Omer, then you shouldn't be in mourning. So what's all this business about Rosh Chodesh to Shavuot? You can do those 33 days. And I'll tell you something else which is fascinating. Halachically, you're not meant to change your minhagim. Halachically, you can't just say I'm going to do, 1 year I'll have a minhag to do this, and 1 year I'll have a minhag to do the other. But with the Omer, you can, and that's the weirdest thing. But why should we be fasting at all after Lag BaOmer? Why should anybody have the minhag? Most of our minhag is to do it up to Lag BaOmer, isn't it? That's a standard Ashkenazi minhag. But there are many people that choose, this year I want to keep that because I've got something on and that I want to go to, etc. And actually, halachically, that's perfectly allowable. It's acceptable, but it's allowable. It's a bit weird if you ask me. But the whole thing is weird if you say the pupils stopped dying on Lag BaOmer. So there must be something going here. So here's an idea which, again, there's no proof for this, but it's a nice idea. And the idea is this, that the Gemara tells us that they died from Pesach to Shavuot. You've seen it there. It's in source number 1. But they didn't die every day of that period, okay, which is where the Bar Kokhba thing comes in a minute. They didn't die every day. They died on 33 of the 49 days of the Omer between Pesach and Shavuot. Okay, this is the idea. Now, which days didn't they die on?
Oh, did the Abarbanel said Abarbanel says you shouldn't shave for 7 weeks. You should be mourning for 7 weeks.
You're right. There are opinions that say you keep the whole lot, the 7 weeks, and that's based on the Gemara, Michael. You're quite right. The Gemara says Pesach to Shavuot. But that's not the way we paskin. I mean, there are some people that do that, but there's some people that never shave ever. So, right. You see somebody with a real big Omer beard, if you go, Which days? Let's go along this track.
Rosh Chodesh.
Let's humour the opinion that says they died on 33 of those 49 days. Which days?
Rosh Chodesh.
Okay, Rosh Chodesh. How many days Rosh Chodesh are there in ER?
2.
2, right.
Siva.
Okay.
Rosh Chodesh Siva.
Right, okay.
And then
So
now-
you've got Rosh Chodesh. You've got Rosh Chodesh. Okay, you've got 2 days of Rosh. Let's say 2 days of Rosh
And
Chodesh.
then now, more recent, you've got for the Yom Ha'atzmaut.
Okay, no, we're pre Yom Ha'atzmaut.
Last day Pesach.
When they were dying, there was no Yom Ha'atzmaut. Okay, so
Last day Pesach.
okay,
Days of Pesach.
okay. Let's go from Pesach. You've got 7 days of Pesach.
Well, not the first day. You don't count the first day.
Okay, all right. You've got the first 7 days of the Omer.
Pesach Sheni.
Right, 7 days of the Omer. You've got how many Shabbatot have you got? Why 7?
There's
Seven.
8
Day a Yom Tov, right?
But
not-
It was after the Churban.
they were
They
were in
Israel.
Israel. They were in-
Okay.
Israel.
We're Isruchak, very good. Don't mess me about. I need 7 days of Pesach, right? How many Shabbatot are there? 7, 14. How many days of Rosh Chodesh?
2.
2, right? At least. Okay. Iyar and Sivan, 2 days of Rosh Chodesh. That's 16 days.
Pesach Sheni.
No, Pesach Sheni doesn't count. Otherwise, it doesn't work. 49 minus 16, 33. So the opinion is this, that the days, the special days, right? Rosh Chodesh, Shabbatot, and Pesach, they didn't die. And so there was a total of 33 days that they did die. And that Lag BaOmer was one of the days that they didn't die. It doesn't all fit in, but that is one opinion as to where the Lag BaOmer came from, that we had to have 33 days. There were 33. I suspect, by the way, this is only my opinion, I suspect that was upside down, that because we have Lag BaOmer, somebody came up with the idea that they were 33 days that they died on, and they took those 16 days off, rather than it be the other way around. And so 33, they said, well, we'll get it all over and done within 133 lot days. I don't think that's the case at all.
This happened in 1 year.
Sorry?
This happened in 1 year.
Yes.
One Pesach to one Shabbat.
Yes, one Pesach to one Shavuot.
Not in 1 year. In 1 year.
No, one
Yeah.
Pesach to Shavuot in 1 year.
1 year.
That's when they all died, yeah.
What it might have meant, the speculation, the days where they're not publicly mourning, right? Because you don't publicly mourn
Right.
on Yom Tov and Shabbos.
Right.
So Ave Lutma for Hestia, but it doesn't really work for Rosh Chodesh.
No.
Either way, it doesn't really add
No,
up.
it doesn't add up either way, because somebody's pointed out that, you know, the Omer doesn't begin until second day
Yeah, you
Pesach.
have 3 days. You have 3 days Rosh Chodesh. So
Yeah, you have to always have 2 days
you have
of
3 days because you have Sivan as well.
yes.
Right,
So I'm saying you always have 2 days Rosh Chodesh on one of those 2 months.
so there's 3 days altogether.
Correct. So it doesn't fit.
Yeah.
But that's the opinion that's given,
Yeah.
even though it doesn't fit.
But when
Right.
they were doing the new moon, though,
Yeah.
they would have only because we
You're
only
right, but when they made this, when they came with this calculation,
Yeah. This was much later. Remember, Lag BaOmer didn't exist until the 16th century at all.
Look
Okay.
at Ian Chutzlaritz, we don't have 2 Lag BaOmer.
Yeah. Well, that wouldn't be so bad. I don't understand why you don't have 2 days Yom Kippur. But anyway, I'm not going down that route right now. Okay. So at some point or another, there's a break in the morning. That's the idea of the break in Lag BaOmer. But to say that I was taught, you know, when I was 4 years old in Jewish day school and beyond that and forever, that the pupils of Rabbi Akiva all died on and stopped dying on Lag BaOmer, and that's why we went to the Blue John mines in Castleford or wherever it is that we went, right? Yeah, and our Lag BaOmer outings. You must have been there a few times, Ronnie.
Before the road broke.
Yeah. So that was what we were all taught. There's no source for that. No, the Gemara doesn't say anything about it at all. Yes, Philip. You're muted.
Why are we taught that?
Sorry. If, as you said before, a lot of the stuff that we know about Lag BaOmer are mythical, then why do we keep keep holding on.
You have to wait for the end of the shear for that, Philip. I know you find it difficult to wait, but you're going to have to wait to the end of the shear to find out if it's all a load of nonsense. Why do we do it? Because it isn't a load of nonsense. It's just not accurate what we're told. Okay, let's move on. Then we've dealt with Ian's idea that the pupils died on stopped dying on Lag BaOmer. They didn't, right? The next one was Anthony's. What did you say? You said the Zohar.
Yeah.
Okay, when is the first mention anywhere of the Zohar? Okay. Try. We've jumped a bit because Anthony went out of sync. We'll go over to number 5. I'll just take you down, folk, onto number 5 on the screen. That's the authorship of the Zohar. Okay. So the Zohar actually first appears in 13th century Spain through a man called Moshe de Leon. Okay, Moshe de Leon, who attributed it to Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, to Rashbi. He said that he had a secret manuscript written by Rashbi, and he was the one that was going to bring it out into the open, this secret manuscript. And in fact, Rashbi was the author of the Zohar, so that's what he said. Interestingly, there are opinions that say that his wife, after he died, spilled the beans and said it was all a load of nonsense, and he wrote it. Okay, so there is a very strong academic opinion that the author of the Zohar was Moshe de Leon himself. Now, if you think about this for a moment, if you had access to a 1100-year-old manuscript, because that's what it would have been in the 13th century if it was written by Rashbi, if you had possession or sight even of an 1100-year-old manuscript, it would be quite valuable, don't you think? Yeah, you wouldn't keep that to yourself. Nobody ever saw this manuscript, and there are those, I won't deny it, I am included in those, that don't believe that there was a manuscript that Moshe de Leon saw of that was written by the Rashbi. So where did all this come from?
Isn't there, I don't know, there's a Gemara or something, but I just vaguely remember that there were 3 great rabbis who delved into the hidden secrets of the Torah. One went mad, one was taken up to heaven, and the only one that survived intact was Rabbi Akiva. It's somewhere.
I'm not familiar with that exact story.
The ones who went into the paradise.
Yeah, in the paradise. We're talking about the paradise. Yeah. So, yes, but this is not what we're talking about. There are hidden secrets. There's this. The Zohar. Anybody here studied the Zohar?
Too young.
No, too young. Yeah. But that doesn't mention anything about the Zohar. You won't find the Zohar mentioned in the Gemara. You find Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai in his cave in the Gemara. You'll find Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai scorching the earth with his eyes and all that. But you won't find anything mentioned about the Zohar. The academics, the non-religious academics, are very, very skeptical about the origins of the Zohar and that it was connected to Rashbi.
And some religious.
Yes, and some religious ones too. But again,
Probably didn't turn into a musical about this book that appeared.
No, yeah, it does sound a bit Mormon, doesn't it?
but the important thing is that doesn't necessarily, inverted commas, trash the Zohar, chas v'sholem. What it does mean is that it might not be, and probably isn't, attributed to the Rashbi. Okay? But so,
There's the Kabbalah in there, some of which is...
For sure, there are ideas in there, which will have been based on Rashbi's teachings, but the concept that we are told and that many people have learned, that the Rashbi revealed the secrets of the Zohar on the day of his death, which was Lag BaOmer, is without foundation. Which brings us to the day of his death, his Yortzeit. Okay, everybody goes up to Meron to daven at a caver, and
Maybe.
a caver.
Maybe.
It is a caver.
Maybe.
Well, it may be empty, you mean? Yeah, we don't know who's in that, but they think some people think Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai is buried there. We'll come back to that in a minute. But the very widely held belief that this was the day of his Yortzeit, that Lag BaOmer was the day he died, and he revealed the secrets of the Zohar on his deathbed, as it were, his parting gift to this world. The only problem is that there's very good evidence that I'm going to take you the zoomers back to number 3 if you want to have a look. Thank you very much. I've got it on here as well, but thank you. Yeah, this will be very good to hand round in a minute, if you would. The idea that Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai's Yortzeit was on Lag BaOmer was first mentioned when? Early 18th century, 1700s. Oh, yes. So some 1600 years after he died. Right. Is it likely that somebody 1600 years after a death would be the first to record the Yortzeit of somebody as famous as Reb Shimon ben Yochai? Not likely, is it? No. I mean, we know when Moshe Rabbeinu's Yortzeit was because everybody knows it was 7th of Adar, okay? But for 1600 years, nobody knew when Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai's Yortzeit was, and then suddenly we know when it was. Again, unlikely. Now, this is the really fascinating bit, that it would appear, there is certainly a very strong suggestion that the reason that we are told that Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai died on Lag BaOmer is a printing error. There was a sefer called Pri Eitz Chaim, written by, anybody know? Reb Chaim Vital. Reb Chaim Vital was a pupil of the Ari, one of the early Kabbalists, and he wrote a sefer called Pri Eitz Chaim. I'm going to show the zoomers, and maybe, Chaim, if you could just show around your thing, that's really helpful that you brought that. Let me just get this up now. Where did I get it? I think it was on here. There we go. Right. Those of you who can see my screen from this side, this is a copy of the Pri Eitz Chaim in 1785. And if I scroll down here, can you see the word there, which is underlined, and on Reb Chaim's phone there, it is in red. It says here, and I'll read it to you. This is all written in, these foreign were printed in Rashi script. You're all familiar with Rashi script. It wasn't only Rashi that's printed in that. Many Sforim are printed in that script. And there is quite a similarity between some of the letters. And two of the letters that are very similar are a chet and a taf. Okay? So for those of you on Zoom, I'm just going to put my pointer over here on the word chodesh. Can you see that there? That where my pointer is? That's a chet. Okay? You can see that chet. And there next to my pointer now is a taf. And they are very, very similar. The only difference is a tiny little squiggle on the bottom of the left-hand side of the letter. So if you draw a chet, a normal Rashi chet, and you put a tiny little squiggle on the left-hand leg, it becomes a taf. Now, what you have to understand is that there was no Google proofreading. Printing was all done by hand, all done by block, right? And there were many, or probably even most, printers of Jewish books were not particularly knowledgeable. They might.
They weren't successful doing it.
Many of them weren't, but those that were, many of them weren't knowledgeable, and would just be copying previous copies. Now, it's very easy to make a mistake, isn't it? I mean, how often I found a mistake in one of our Sifrei Torah just 2 weeks ago in the middle of laning. I was laning. It was on Yom Tov. It was on Shabbat Chol Hamoed. There was a mistake in there. There was it said Aviv. The Yud of Aviv looked like a Vav. It was too long. The Yud was too long, and that was somebody that handwritten a Sefer Torah. Kal v'chomer, somebody who's printing things. There was a printing mistake. So what's a printing mistake? So in the earlier editions of the Pri Eitz Chaim, it says that on the day that Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai revealed secrets of the Torah, Samach, Sin, Mem, Chet. Samach means he rejoiced. He rejoiced. Same word as Simcha. If you make that Chet into a Taf, what does it read? Shemet. He died. Suddenly, a celebration about revealing the secrets of the Torah becomes his Yortzeit.
Is that an unusual form, though?
No, it says on that day, Shemet, which he died. She means like on which. So on the day, Bayom Shemet, on the day that he died, he revealed the secrets. So you can read it either as Bayom Shegila, I haven't got the exact words here, but Bayom Shegila et Yesodei Torah, Samach Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. He celebrated. Or you could read it on the day that he Shemet. That was the day on which he died. Okay? That was the apparent here on the screen, guys. Those of you who can see the screen, underlined here is the Samach, and it says Vahu Samach Belag Ba'omer. Okay? And on the other version over here, Shemet Rashbi B'yom Lag Ba'omer. Okay? It's a printing error. And because of that printing error,
Exactly 20 years difference.
20 years difference, yeah. 1752 was the Shar HaKavanot, was another sefer written by Rav Chaim Vital, and the first edition of the Pri Eitz Chaim, and then the later editions, it also reads Samach correctly. So you've got two editions where there was these printing mistakes, and there was one was 1785 in Koretz, and the other one was in Dubrovno in 1802. And those are those of you who are on Zoom can see the facsimiles of
When
that.
did this printing mistake come to the fore?
Well, I'm not sure that it was not until quite recently. I can only speak for myself. I'd never heard of such a thing. Reb Chaim?
I heard about it 10 years ago.
Yeah. Again, fairly recently.
Right.
I've got in front of me here on the screen, and I'll send out a link because it's definitely worth reading. An excellent article by Eliezer Brott, who I've quoted in this source sheet. Actually, I think I've given you this. I think I've got the click link there, and on the screen for those who are on Zoom, you can see it. It's written in 2011. This article. And it's called A Printing Mistake and the Mysterious Origins of Rashbi's Yartzeit.
That's a stupid question. What is the first date when we actually know about Rashbi?
We know about Rashbi from the Gemara. He was a Tanna. So we know about Rashbi from the Gemara, which Gemara was written in round about 450 to 550, something like that. Rashbi lived in
it's likely that he did exist.
Oh,
he
he's
lived,
yeah.
and lived at the time that we thought he lived.
Yeah, I don't think there's any.
And learnt Sifrei Torah as well. He did.
Yeah. There's no question of his
Yeah.
of Rashbi's authenticity. The difficulty with authenticity comes to the much later, and we're not talking 100 years later. We're talking 1,000 years later and more of the legends. That's why I called this share Myths, Legends, and the Truth, because there are some myths which are just not true. There are some legends about Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai. When I say a legend, that means something which might have happened or it might be allegorical. You know, the stuff out of the cave. Did he come out of his cave and did his eyes really scorch the earth, or is the Gemara talking allegorically? It doesn't matter whether which way you can, you know, if you're a literalist and you want to take it literally, gesund hate. But there's a message there, you know, the depths of Torah, the depths of fire in his eyes. We even have that expression in English, don't we? There's fire in his eyes.
You've not challenged anything that in the Rishonim.
No,
whatsoever.
the Rishonim don't mention him.
Don't mention it.
It doesn't exist in the Rishonim. You know, we're talking Rishonim. We're talking about, you know, Rashi, Rambam, Ramban. Nothing. Goodness. Yeah, doesn't exist. So it's a much later thing brought in by the Kabbalists. So to answer your question, not a stupid question, a very sensible question. Rashbi existed. He was a pupil of Rabbi Akiva, that we know very clearly from the Gemara. He was a very spiritual man. He was chased away by the Romans. He went and hid from the Romans. Whether he hid in that particular cave up there and whether it was for 12 years and whether he lived on carobs and a miraculous stream, you know, I wasn't there, I can't tell you, right? But it doesn't matter.
But lots of Jews lived in caves. It was a common thing. People.
Yeah. But this particular cave had a miraculous stream and a miraculous carob tree. But it doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter whether those midrashim are taken literally or not to be taken literally. You remember, you need to bear in mind when you read midrashim, you need to bear in mind the Ramban. The Ramban says anybody that takes all of the midrashim literally is a fool. Anybody who doesn't believe any of them is an apikoros, right? So that's the Ramban. Okay, so again, it doesn't matter whether those legends are true legends or allegorical legends. What we do know is that he existed. What we do know is he was a great Tanna. What we do know is that he revealed secrets of the Torah that had never been revealed before. What we don't know is when he died. And what we also don't know is where he's buried. Because the earliest mention of his burial place in Meron is also time of the Arizal. Again, the Kabbalistic period of Sfat and the time of the Ari, round about 16th, 17th century. Suddenly, again, is it likely that the burial place of such a famous Tanna as Reb Shimon ben Yochai would not be known for 1400 years, and suddenly somebody knows it? And suddenly, not only do they know it, they also know that he revealed the secrets of the Zohar on the day that he died. It's all very unlikely. So what you end up having is you have a situation where people are celebrating the Yortzeit of somebody who didn't die on that day in a place where he's not buried, and celebrating the fact that he revealed a book that he didn't write or didn't reveal.
We have mentioned as well as people going to Iran, like the people went to Iran and they don't mention Reb Shimon bar Yochai's keva.
Right.
Which is,
again,
a dead giveaway.
Yeah. So the likelihood.
Where does that thing come from? Because I think that because and obviously this Hasidic thing of the Rizal had specific knowledge and a direct connection to Hashem, and therefore it's Ruach HaKodesh, which is bled into the Litvish world.
Yeah, exactly. It has bled into that. That's exactly a good description. It comes from the Kabbalists. It comes from that mystical group of people who were, no question about it. They were incredibly great people with very, very great spirituality. Did they have Ruach HaKodesh? No, I don't think they had Ruach HaKodesh, because Ruach HaKodesh stopped a very long time ago. So, however, did they get...
Wait a minute, you've got it.
I've got Ruach HaKodesh. Thank you very much for that. Philip is one of my Hasidim. That's the level that I've got.
The Ramaz place on Lag BaOmer, because it's his Yortzeit, and that we do know.
Right.
And then post-Holocaust, when they could no longer go to the Ramah Keva, it sort of got, well, we're going to go here instead.
I think, yeah, I mean, and that may well be true. I think they were going to Meron long before that, of course.
Not in the
Not in the numbers what we're talking about now. No, of course, because the Chassid, we could have another shir. Next time I'm here, Bezrat Hashem, we'll do a shir on the origins of Chassidut. Okay, but we're just on. We're talking about the Kabbalists. So how did all this happen? So that was the question. The Kabbalistic movement was utterly revolutionary. It was different to anything that had gone on before then, and was very seriously opposed by many serious Torah scholars. Okay, Kabbalism, is that a word? Kabbalah, right? Is not? It sounded wrong. It sounded wrong. Anyway, the Kabbalistic movement was a movement of great spirituality that was opposed by many then mainstream Torah scholars because it was delving into stuff that was not in the Torah and not in the Gemara and not in the Mishnah, which is our foundational texts. Okay, and what they were frightened about is actually what's happened, in that it has become for many the central part of their religion. And we're all aware, aren't we, of Kabbalistic teachings that are very far from mainstream. And there are very many so-called celebrities in the outside world who have latched on to Kabbalah, right? It's about as far, Madonna being one of them, yeah. It's about as close to Judaism as, as Christianity, probably. But so the problem is, like all of these things, that if you have a small group of elite spiritual people who can handle these things, then that's all well and good. But you use the word bled into the Litvish world. All of these things have bled. First of all, they bled into Judaism. Remember, they were coming fairly close on the heels of some cataclysmic events, one of which, the most cataclysmic event of that era was what? Shabtai Tzvi, right? This was a little bit later, but this was very much in the footsteps of Shabtai Tzvi. And what it meant was that the mainstream Torah leaders of the time were very, very wary of the Arizal and all of this Kabbalistic thing, because it schmecked of Shabtai Tzvi. It schmecked of, false messianic ideas, which of course, it wasn't, but it was they saw it as a dangerous element. We've gone off the track a bit, but it's interesting. So we've shown that the pupils probably didn't stop dying on Lag BaOmer. We've shown that Rashbi probably didn't reveal the Zohar and probably didn't die on Lag BaOmer and probably isn't buried in Meron. Okay, so all of those customs that are held so massively strongly by the Hasidim are shaky in their authenticity. But again, I'm going to come back to it at the end, but we're not going to trash Lag BaOmer just because of that, right? Lag BaOmer has its own value, even if those things aren't necessarily authentic. But let's have a look at some other things that have happened with Lag BaOmer a bit later on. Let's go back. I'm going to take this off the screen, everyone, and I'm going to go back to the source sheet for you.
So
there you go.
The 12,000 couples, how accurate is that, though?
Okay, another good question. Yeah. Right, Rabbi Akiva we know existed, right? No question about that. Rabbi Akiva was probably the greatest of all Tanaim, maybe, contest between him and Rabbi Yehuda Anossi, but, he's up there in the top, like Brian Clough said, Lahavdil. He's up there in the top one. Rabbi Akiva was a great Tana. He had many, many followers. And I'm going to come back to that in a second when we talk about Bar Kokhba. He had 24,000 pupils that all died.
So
now you
have altogether then?
Okay, who knows? But let's say he had 24,000 and they all died, because that's the implication that we're given, because then he was only left with 5 new pupils. After they all died, he had 5 special pupils, of which Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai was one. Okay? So he's got 24,000 pupils. Rabbi Akiva is your teacher. How likely is it that all 24,000 of Rabbi Akiva's pupils were badly behaved one towards the other? When Rabbi Akiva, Amar Rabbi Akiva, ze klal gadol b'Torah, ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. I mean, it doesn't make sense. If your Rebbe is Rabbi Akiva, whose greatest klal in the whole Torah is ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, then it doesn't make any sense that every single one of his pupils treated people badly. You'd say the opposite. You'd expect Rabbi Akiva's pupils to be super nice to one another, because they're trying to do levavta l'recha kamocha, like the Rebbe says, right? So again, let's think about this a little bit more intelligently, I suppose is the word, or maturely, not intelligently, maturely. One of those of you who know me well will also know one of my biggest beefs is what I call kindergarten Judaism. It's fine to be taught all this stuff that we've discussed today in kindergarten. Kindergarten time, even junior school time, junior school, infant school, it's fine. You need to be told black and white things. You know, Yaakov is good, Esav is bad. I need to know the difference. Rabbi Akiva, his pupils were not nice to one another, so they all died, right? And but the problem is that kindergarten type Judaism persists through junior school, through high school, through yeshiva, into adulthood, and into the grave. And this is probably my biggest beef, and probably the single. I'm speaking now to you guys here because you're for a new audience for me. Most of the guys on Zoom there know this back to front because I've said it so many times. It's probably the single one thing that's made me start doing what I've been doing for the last 15 years. And that is to correct and to try to do my bit to undo the dreadful Jewish education that I had, that my kids had, and that all of their contemporaries had, because they didn't get beyond kindergarten. They might be able to learn Rashi, Tosfos, Radak, Ralbag, Meiri, Tur, Shulchan Aruch. They might be able to learn that beautifully, but they're still practicing kindergarten thoughts when it comes to Yiddishkeit.
We do. We just want to concur. We've been taught and brainwashed these same ideas over and over. Right, they spun the dreidel because that's what the Greeks did. Yeah, and it's very hard to shake them, and to try and convince people that they were misinformed at best is very challenging.
Very challenging.
Yeah, and the only way to do it is from the text.
Correct. And you know, Reb Chaim is doing a fabulous job. It came 25 years too late for my family, but I can't blame him for that, for being born too late. But he's doing a fabulous job over there in King David, trying to undo all this.
At least the King David kids on there.
Yeah. But seriously, isn't it a tragedy that all of us around this table didn't know any of this stuff, right? Anyway, that's my. How did we get onto that?
I got in trouble because I wrote to my kids.
12,000 pairs, that's right.
I wrote to my kids' school that Yom Ha'atzmaut's got more religious significance than Lag BaOmer. And I explained why based on the class. They didn't go down.
No, I dare say. So we're going to come on to a modern day. One second, let me just follow this thought. The 24,000. So how likely is it? What the Gemara is probably telling us, in my view, what the Gemara is telling us is that Rabbi Akiva had this concept of ve'ahavta l'recha kamocha. We know that. Zeh klal gadol b'Torah ve'ahavta l'recha kamocha. Amar Rabbi Akiva. Right? You would expect his pupils to be on a very high level of ve'ahavta l'recha kamocha, and they weren't up to scratch. That doesn't mean that every single pair of them were horrible to one another and they all died, because we know for a fact that the Gemara, the Mishnah, and even perhaps the written Torah uses numbers that at best are difficult to explain, and if you're being less politically correct, can't possibly be. So,
or rounded up.
rounded up.
Sure.
They used beguzma. They're used as an example.
Expression of
Correct.
magnitude.
If I say to you, I live 1,000,000 miles from such a body. Do you live close to him? No, I'm 1,000,000 miles away. You're not 1,000,000 miles away. You might be, 5 miles or 10 miles or 20 miles or 100 miles. You're not 1,000,000 miles. We use the words of expression. There's a fabulous book, I recommend it, called Ani Maamin by Rabbi Joshua Berman. Okay. Have you read it? Fabulous book. Absolutely. It's a hard read. It's an academic book. He's a very, very bright fellow, and it's written in quite an academic style. And you have to, it's not the and he's from, it's not the kind of thing, it's not the kind of thing you read by the pool on holiday, right? It's hard going, but it's very well worth it. And he's got a brilliant section on the numbers in Tanakh, and he explains how we come across these crazy numbers. So did 24,000 pupils die? On the one hand, I'm tempted to say no. It's a figure of expression. How many people died in the plague after? That's a different. No, that's a different Ani Maamin. That is the Ani Maamims of the Rambam. Also very good, by the way.
What the work in the Black Death? In the Black
didn't
Death,
quite right. Don't go there. Right. So
a third of the world's population.
One second. How many? The Torah tells us how many people died in the plague after the Pinchas episode.
24,000.
24,000.
Multiples of 6 as well.
Right, 24,000. That's a familiar number, isn't it? Okay. How many years did we wander in the desert?
24,000.
40 years. How many days and nights did Moshe spend up in 40?
Yeah.
How many years? 40 days. Yeah, the numbers repeat themselves throughout. And so Joshua Berman's theory is don't take the numbers literally. They are used in sort of metaphorical terms in a way. Okay, you can read that for yourselves. It's fascinating about the numbers. However, that leads us on to another section, which is number 6 here on the source sheet. And that is about Bar Kokhba. Now, Rabbi Akiva, somebody mentioned, I think it was Jackie, mentioned that Rabbi Akiva thought that Bar Kokhba was Mashiach, or was potentially Mashiach. Was he right?
No.
No, he wasn't. Now, can you imagine what would happen today if a leading rabbi threw his hat in the ring with somebody as Mashiach who turned out not to be Mashiach? What do you think would happen to that leading rabbi?
They'll make him chief rabbi.
What do you think would happen to that leading rabbi?
He gets
He would
sacked.
no longer be a leading rabbi.
Gets sacked.
Rabbi Akiva thought that Bar Kokhba was Mashiach, and he was wrong, and he still remained the great Rabbi Akiva, and he was still recognized.
What do you mean by Mashiach? Does it mean someone who we think is Mashiach now, because it's come?
His opinion was that he was going to be the one that would lead the people back to Yerushalayim and the rebuilding of the Beis Hamikdash. That's what he thought.
Well, he's a general. Rebellion succeeded, and it would happen.
Okay, but it didn't, and he wasn't.
Yeah.
And he turned out to be Bar Kaziba. Okay?
What's the source of that then?
Gemara. So, as an aside, I think this is fascinating that Rabbi Akiva could get it completely wrong in retrospect. Nobody blames him prospectively, but retrospectively, he was completely wrong and remains to us the great Rabbi Akiva. That says a huge amount.
What happened with that?
Right. It's a huge thing. People make mistakes. Even Rabbi Akiva made a mistake, and not just a little one, right? A massive one. And I think we need to learn from that. We find there are, I'm not going to go into names, obviously, but there are many senior rabbinical figures, leaders of communities who make mistakes. And pardon the expression, they're crucified for it, right? And it's, I just wonder whether we could learn something from this. That's just a bit of an aside.
You want an amazing victory, ejecting the Romans. It's only then they sent 6 armies in, and there was a reasonable, but and obviously in his early days before the power got to him, he was a religious man.
Of course.
It wasn't.
Rabbi Akiva wasn't an idiot.
Unreasonable to think that
It wasn't.
This guy could be it.
Correct. It wasn't unreasonable. But people do things and they make mistakes, and you're finished. In today's society, one mistake and you're finished.
So the spreading of information now is so much faster.
For whatever reason, Gareth, I just believe that we could learn a lesson here from this. Wasn't the main thing I wanted to talk about Bar Kokhba, but as an aside. Now,
and the Gemara wants us to know that he made the mistake.
Yeah.
The Gemara doesn't
doesn't hide it. Correct. That's another very, very important point. Now, Rabbi Akiva supported Bar Kokhba, big time. He had 24,000 pupils, let's say. Right? What's he going to sell those pupils? What's he going to tell them? Go and fight for Bar Kokhba. I'm telling you, Bar Kokhba is your man. We need to be fighting. He's your man. We need to support this Bar Kokhba rebellion. Bar Kokhba is, right? That is one opinion, is that the 24,000 pupils died. We do know, again, there's exaggeration in the figures there. It says in Beitar that the 600,000 Jews were killed in Beitar alone in the Bar Kokhba rebellion. Can't be. There weren't 600,000 Jews in existence at that time, right? But it can't be. But it doesn't matter. It was a lot. It was a massacre. And many, many, many people died. Thousands of people died. Almost certainly Rabbi Akiva would have encouraged and ordered his pupils to down Gemaras. Well, there wasn't a Gemara then, but you know what I mean. Down Gemaras and go and fight for Bar Kokhba. I don't need to make any comment about that. Hamevin Yovin, okay? I don't need to spell it out. And probably 24,000 pupils dying. It was probably a large proportion of his pupils were killed fighting for Bar Kokhba. That is an opinion. It's not mentioned in the Gemara. Gemara only talks about them not treating each other nicely. However, there is many, I would say, some mainstream opinion now that would accept that it's a possibility that was the case. Now,
and there's no harm in saying that that's the reason why they were killed.
There is, if you don't believe in fighting for your country.
Fair point.
Okay? There is a point. Because if you accept that Rabbi Akiva told his students to go and fight, then you've got a problem.
Yeah.
Okay, so again.
Sorry, Ronnie, you go first.
There's a fundamental problem here. You think about 24,000 people. It's got 25,000 people. And we're expected to believe that he had 24,000 pupils sitting around him.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. By the way, let me ask you this question. Does anybody know, Philip, you'll probably know this question, but don't shout it out until everybody else has had a go. Does anybody know how many soldiers and victims of terror there have been in Israel since the War of Independence, or including the War of Independence?
Probably about 24,000, because they talked about 21, 22 the other day. So with that,
how many? I didn't hear. How many?
It is around that. You're right. Yes, Philip.
Around soldiers around 25,000 dead.
Yeah.
Civilians around 5,500, but there are very, very many more wounded.
Okay,
we're talking about past. That's since 1851.
We're talking about deaths. Yeah. So 20. I think the last figure that I recall from it may not be 100% accurate. This, but it's very close because I looked it up for the Yom HaZikaron thing that I did. 25,962 is the figure that's in my head. It's around about that figure, right? And that is all of the soldiers' deaths since and including the War of Independence. Is it likely that 24,000 pupils of Rabbi Akiva died
in 7 weeks?
In 7 weeks?
Mm.
Unlikely.
Especially
However,
fewer number of Jews in the world.
it doesn't matter. That's where we're coming to now. We're out of time, really. So I just want to do the last couple of sections in the source sheet.
Why do you say it doesn't matter?
I'll tell you in a minute why I say it doesn't matter. It does matter, but it doesn't matter. So I just want to finish these two bits first, and then we'll wrap it up with why it doesn't matter or why it does matter. So what's interesting is we haven't mentioned bows and arrows and bonfires. Let's do that very briefly. Bonfires, Hasidic thing, fire, Rabbi Shimon ben Yochai, fire in his eyes. The light, fire is light, fire is warmth, light is Torah, warmth is Torah. It's become different in modern day Israel. Modern day Israel, Lag BaOmer, has taken on a different sort of guise, really. It's become a nationalist festival. It's become something which has been associated with Bar Kokhba, quite rightly so, because of the connection with Rabbi Akiva and his students. But the modern Zionists have taken it on board as a symbol of bravery, courage, and not sitting there waiting to be killed like lambs to the slaughter, but actually going and fighting. Because, of course, that is the ethos of the modern Israeli state, is that never again are we going to have a Holocaust situation where we are helpless and we behave in a helpless manner. Just as an aside, there is a day in Israel which is Yom HaShoah. Anybody round the table? I know you on the Zoomers know it. But around the table, what's its real name of Yom HaShoah?
V'hagvura.
Philip, I said not you. Its real name is Yom HaZikaron LeShoah UleGvura. It's the day of remembrance for the Holocaust and for Gvura, bravery. You know why? Because they couldn't bring themselves to have a day which commemorated the slaughter without resistance. Correct. What day is it on? It's on the anniversary of the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. And that was chosen deliberately because really it's for them, for the Israeli back in the day, early state days when they made this Yom HaShoah, it was the early 50s, what they wanted to commemorate was not the Shoah, but the Gvura. But they had to sort of put it all together.
In their defence, they tried creating a day. They tried creating a day which would...
The Rabbonim did, yeah.
Not the Rabbonim.
But the state didn't want it.
I've heard of the chief rabbis, and they went to the Brisker Rov, and they went to the Rabbonim, and they said, no, we've got Tisha B'Av.
Yeah. So, they did try. Yeah. Sarah Batavis has become the Kaddish Klali, etc.
But the 24,000 sat and learned what they've won the war.
I'm not qualified to answer that question, Ian. Right. So I just want to finish off. I want to finish off. So the modern Zionists have taken Lag BaOmer as the symbol of courage and of fighting, and that's where the bow and arrow comes. The bow is connected. Why do we have bows and arrows? The original reason was because it is said, another legend, that there was no rainbow ever shown during the life of Rashbi, because Kodesh Baruch, the rainbow was a sign of a Kodesh Baruch who's not going to destroy the world again, and Rashbi was so holy that there was no need for a rainbow. So there's a connection between Rashbi and the bow, Keshet. Okay, so they've taken that bow and arrow, but the modern Israeli take is bolted it onto the Bar Kokhba thing, and you find kids with bows and arrows and bonfires. And the modern Israeli, the modern Zionist holiday of Lag BaOmer, for most of the kids, it's just an excuse to have a bonfire. But those, for instance, like Bnei Akiva and the Zionist youth groups, they latch onto the Bar Kokhba bit because the narrative suits what they want to do, which is the modern Jew is not going to sit there and do nothing. It's a Bar Kokhba Jew, right? We're going to fight. We might not win, but we're going to fight. And if we're going to fight, we're going to go down fighting. We're not going to go down like lambs to the slaughter. So that's how it's perceived now in modern Israel. So does all of this matter? So what have I said? I've trashed Lag BaOmer for the last hour and 7 minutes, right? And now I'm going to turn it on its head and say, actually, although one of my obsessions is authenticity, and although Lag BaOmer is not authentic in the way it's been taught to us in our kindergarten Judaism, and most of the things that we associate with Lag BaOmer are probably not historically accurate. Doesn't matter, because that does matter as long as you know it. Okay, it matters if you don't know it and you believe stuff that is not true. And it's more important. What matters is that you're taught stuff that is not true. Right? It's not your
realize,
fault,
Johnny, that
it's not our fault if that's what we're taught, because that's what we were taught. But it's wrong to teach. I believe it's wrong to teach people things that are not true, because you know what? They'll find out it's not true eventually, and then they'll say, "Baby and bathwater, the whole thing's a load of rubbish." Right? So chuck the baby away with the bathwater. So that matters. But should we then go back to having Lag BaOmer as a nothing day? Don't go to the Blue John Mines and don't have your Lag BaOmer parade in Broughton Park or wherever. No, it's a day to celebrate. It's a day to celebrate. Never miss a chance to celebrate. There are great things that happen. Okay, so you can celebrate the fact that there was a Rebbe Shimon ben Yochai. Celebrate the fact that there are Yesodei Torah, there are secrets of the Torah that were brought out. Celebrate the fact that there was a Bar Kochba who did fight with all his might, and the people that fought with him fought with all their great courage and gave their life b'kedushat Am Yisrael. We can recognize that. We can recognize.
Chasam Sofer's got a theory that that's the day the Mon started.
Oh,
He makes
okay.
a calculation.
All right.
I'll show you afterwards. Right. Totally unrelated to anything we've ever been taught in primary school. And he says maybe it's something else significant, but he's not a fan of the way Lag BaOmer
Right.
is.
So again, how we do Lag BaOmer, why we do Lag BaOmer, not authentic. But is there something to Lag BaOmer? Yes, because there are people that we stop. Even in the Shulchan Aruch, it says that on Lag BaOmer, you can stop there are minhagim to stop the Avelut. So at some point or other, the pupils stop dying. And, if you like, it's as good a day as any to commemorate it. It doesn't, the point, I don't want this shiur to have just been, Lieberman said Lag BaOmer was a load of rubbish and we shouldn't bother with it, right? What Lieberman is saying is that what we have been taught in our kindergarten Judaism is not necessarily true or accurate, and you don't have to believe things. And I'm just using this as Lag BaOmer as an example. You don't have to believe things that are not believable, because if there are things that are not believable, then either you believe them and you're not really thinking about them, or you don't believe them, but you have to pretend to believe them because that's what everybody expects you to do. And that's not authentic, and that's not true, and that's not tmimistic. My view of it's not Chacham v'Navon, for sure. My view is that Judaism should be something which uplifts our life. And if we are doing things that we know are not right, I mean, my father of blessed memory was a very straightforward man. He wasn't particularly educated, but he was a very, very, very powerful Jewish neshama. And he would hear something and he would say, that takes a bit of bloody believing. And it was right. The stuff that he was told, it did take a bit of bloody believing. And he didn't believe it. And he was right not to believe it, because without even knowing it, he was not willing to accept kindergarten Judaism. And we should not be willing to accept things that we know are not right, not true. Okay? I once had a guy came to collect, and I'll finish on this. A guy came to collect, and was still living here in Manchester. A guy came to collect from some kollel for difficult shilas in Yerushalayim. And I gave him a question, and I'd been hawking this question around for months and hadn't got an answer. I won't go into it now because my battery's about to run out. But it was a question, and I said, look, the Gemara says this, and this, and that's actually scientifically not true. Right? If you really want to know what it was about Sarah Imenu stopping having periods, because the Gemara says she didn't have a uterus. So Chadal liot leorach kanashim, she stopped having periods. How could she stop having periods if she didn't have a uterus? She couldn't start in the first place, right? So I said to him, here's 18 quid. When you come back to me with a sensible answer, I'll give you 180 quid. He never came back to me. But he said to me, well, if the Gemara said it, it must be true. I said, well, here's the Gemara that says that, the Chachmei Yisrael says the world's flat. He says, well, it must be then. Right? So I rest my case. We don't need to have kindergarten Judaism. It spoils Judaism if you stick with kindergarten Judaism. Use your God-given intelligence and make your Judaism authentic and inspiring. Enjoy Lag BaOmer, but don't make it something that it isn't. Okay, before the battery runs out, which it looks like it's only got a couple of minutes left, let me just ask the Zoomers, if you've got anyone on Zoom, we've got 16 people on Zoom, if anybody has a question that they would like to ask before I stop the recording.
Johnny, can I ask?
Yes, Jackie, go ahead.
Could the bonfires on Lag BaOmer have any connection at all to the bonfires they used to light on Rosh Chodesh?
Possibly. Let's just unpack that a minute. What were they doing on Rosh Chodesh? Rosh Chodesh, they used bonfires initially to pass on when the date of Rosh Chodesh was going to be.
Yeah.
Once there'd been Kiddush HaChodesh, there'd been the sanctification of the new moon. Of course, the Baitanim messed it all up because they lit false fires and they told them when it was Rosh Chodesh when it wasn't, and they messed it all up. So could that be? I don't know, Jackie, because Lag BaOmer is nowhere near Rosh Chodesh, is
I
it?
know.
But
it signals something.
Yeah, so probably not is the answer.
Okay.
Okay, my battery is low, and so I'm going to stop the recording. I'll see you all next week, folk, over there in Israel. Laila Tov.
Would you say, though, that 33 days of mourning is quite excessive? If you think we had